Public domain has for sure gone a long way, but sometimes I feel like these days people are not even trying anymore. So, I Heart Willie is the newest Mickey Mouse horror film. We had The Mousetrap last year, and also there's a couple more coming up this year too, but I'm not going to be talking about all of them. I'm just going to be talking about a selected few. One in April, but this is the only passable one I'm actually going to talk about. I didn't hear about this movie till a week ago, and when that trailer dropped, I said, okay, this looks cheap, a little bit corny, but hopefully the movie's good. And when I saw that there was a 1 day release for it, I said, hopefully it's good. Let me just start off by saying that I appreciate the fact and effort people have towards the public domain, and there are a lot of creative ideas out there people can use with these characters. Yes, some of them is horror for the most part, because I feel like, yeah, everybody feels like horror is the main thing to go to nowadays. But there are times where I feel like, yeah, some of these ideas should just stay in the circle group between friends, because, yeah, this was quite a movie. I'm just gonna start this off by saying this movie's bad. It's not even bad, it's just terrible, and not even in a guilty pleasure way either. The plot goes as YouTubers heading over to investigate a haunted house, not realizing that inside that house is an obsessed killer dressed as Mickey Mouse. Let me start off with Mickey, or in this case, Mouse Boy as they call him in this movie. There's no way you can look at the poster that this movie's giving you and say, okay, okay, he looks like Mickey in that poster, has an axe, it looks all scary and stuff, but when you look at him in this movie, that mask and everything is just false advertising. He's dressed up like Steamboat Willie up to the shorts and the shoes. The mask, for the most part, looks like skin, but in this case, I thought they were going to interpret this one way where most of this movie feels like an interpretation or some cheap version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But nothing about him as the killer feels threatening enough, and the fact that he doesn't even do anything for the movie where he's just standing around waiting for people to come to him. The only thing that shines about him is just basically that he's just dressed like Mickey. That's the only thing that's getting attraction for this film, and the only thing that is kind of getting dumbasses like me to go see it. Our group of teenagers, but in this case, I'm just gonna say they're basically adults acting like teenagers, and it surely shows. Most of these guys didn't have anything to do in the movie. Most of them were just around giving around exposition, or in this case, this movie's version of telling the Steamboat Willie story. Like, oh, there was a mouse boy or a mouse guy on a boat, but besides that, none of them are interesting, and each of them play off the certain stereotypes you would normally see in a scary movie. And the final girl, the hot one, the funny one, but not really though, and the emo dude, but most of these guys don't even have any emotional value to them. And a couple times it feels like they're reading off of cue cards or they just remember the lines and just said it right before filming. I could argue that this is their first time doing a movie like this, but then again, I would have to argue that there are cheaper horror movies out there that actually have lower budgets, and there are some actors in those films that actually put out their all since they don't know that's actually going to be their big shot. But yeah, most of the acting and mostly some of the body work in this movie is didn't work for me. With as much bad acting in this film, you think the kills would be good, but then again, yeah, the kills match as much as the acting. The kills aren't even that good, and most of the fact that 100% of this movie is filmed in the shadows, where there are moments where, oh, you see Mickey Mouse trying to catch these guys, but the fact that he doesn't even do anything and there's a cut and it cuts out to a different scene where he just has a tiny little blade. The most gore you see is a guy being skinned, but it's hidden in the shadows where you just see his back, but I can tell that he didn't even cut into it and you just see it all red in makeup. And 100% of this movie's kills are basically knife slits or even blade slits because they don't even show gore. Like you see him cut someone, but you don't see no blood, you don't see anything like that. This movie was around 90 minutes, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of those times where I feel like, yeah, the movie feels longer than the runtime, and it showed because there's nothing but bad dialogue. A couple scenes where I feel like I don't know if this was a reshoot or they shot it where you would hear some dialogue between characters, two individual characters. One of them would stop, and then the sound would cut off in the theater. And then suddenly, when somebody else talks, the sound kind of heats up, and you hear the background noise. I don't know if that was an audio mistake or the fact that they just said, "Okay, we'll run with it." But this happens a couple times in this movie, and that kind of brought me in and out of it at times. Did I go into this film thinking it was going to be good? No, not really. But part of that is the problem where I feel like most of these public domain movies that they say, oh, once a character goes into public domain, we have access to do whatever we want. And horror is usually the first thing people go to. But part of the fun of the whole public domain thing is that I wish people actually did something with these characters and actually expand on the lore, or at least play with the actual lore of the character and actually incorporate that into their movies. Like when you look at what the Winnie the Pooh guys are doing, I appreciate the fact that the first film they said, okay, we'll make it, but then again, we'll actually have some more support, and with the more support we gain from it, they actually could improve it with a sequel, and they did that, and with the other spin-off movies that they're actually working on. Same goes with the Terrifier crew because they also did the Mean one. And when you look at that film, they got away with it with horror parody. They tried to incorporate the Grinch, and yes, that movie isn't as good, but then again, they actually tried and actually put out an effort to actually say, you know what, we can do whatever we want, and actually, with the amount of parody, we can actually parody some of the stuff they actually did in those movies. But with this, there was no fun in it whatsoever. I feel like these guys just said Mickey Mouse horror film. Yeah, we'll do it in the cheapest way possible and just put it out there. This to me feels like a one-time watch, and if I'm gonna be honest with you, I wouldn't even think of looking back on it once it's on HD or digital, whatever the kids are watching on it these days. I hate Willie, and so will you. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All my social media down in the description below, and hopefully that Screamboat movie is good because yeah, they have no standards to actually try and beat this because I know that one's gonna be better.